What a crazy 24 hours. Poor drivers stuck on I-95 in Virginia without food or water in their frozen vehicles. Outgoing Democrat Governor Ralph Northam, he has no sympathy for these people. He said, quote, "We gave warnings and people need to pay attention to these warnings. And the less people that are on the highways when these storms hit, the better." Obviously, his warnings were too late if thousands were stuck. Maybe he should have had snow removal crews ready for the storm. And while some blame the governor for this mess, others put the blame on his replacement, who's not in office yet, Glenn Youngkin. He won't be sworn in until January 15th. Who is really to blame for this catastrophe? The party panel is back. Carol Markowitz, Kelly Hyman, and Dave Smith. Dave, I will start with you. Is it really the best policy to be blaming people who are just trying to get home after a long holiday?
Yeah, that's probably even worse than blaming the guy who hasn't gotten in yet. I've heard of politicians blaming the last guy for the problems, but this is new to blame the next guy. Yeah, I don't think that's a good move. And of course, government does a very bad job at all of the services that they're tasked with doing, and they misallocate resources and all of this stuff. But it is this was really quite a mess. I knew a couple people who were stuck in it, and this was really something unbelievable. You don't hear about this too often. So very, very dangerous situation. And of course, people in government never take responsibility, even when it's blatantly their fault, which is kind of a common theme on this show.
Yeah, no, it's their responsibility, Kelly. This was 7 inches of snow. This was not 3.5 feet in an hour. So, I know that you take issue with people not having solar blankets and emergency water in their car, but sometimes people are just driving.
Absolutely. Sometimes people are driving, and that's definitely a good point. But we also have to remember the National Weather Forecast came out and said not to drive. Having said that, people get stuck, and the Transportation Department had said that they are sorry and they are going to investigate the situation. I think it's key to come up with some kind of solutions and think about the heroes that were there, the truck drivers that went to people to give them food and to help them because they had food and water, the fire department giving out blankets to help people and stuff. But let's try and come up with a solution so this never happens again.
How about plow the streets? That's a good
that would be a good would be a good thing. That would be absolutely a good thing to do. But we can't forecast the weather all the time and helping how
Kelly,
bad it was. But
that.
Absolutely,
Kelly, that's what you just said. That's the basis for your argument. There was a weather forecast. People should have followed the weather forecast. The government didn't follow the weather forecast, so you can't have it both ways.
No, absolutely. That's not my point. My point is that there was bad weather, but it was even worse than what they anticipated, and that you can't always predict weather. That they did thought it was going to be bad, but it was a lot worse than what they anticipated.
Carol?
Yeah, this is something only Democrats can try. It's your fault you got stuck for 30 hours on the highway. It also really seems like during the pandemic, the left forgot that a lot of people can't work from home in their pajamas. I saw so many pictures of trucks stuck on that highway. Those trucks deliver your snacks and Pelotons so you could stay working on your couch. There was also a senator stuck in that traffic jam. I'm sure he does some work somewhere, too. The idea that this was just like people taking a joyride is obviously absurd. We saw who was there, and look, they had to be somewhere. That's how work works.
Yeah, and that's how interstates work. And that's how roads work in places like Lake Tahoe and Buffalo. People are still able to navigate them because the government sends out snow plows and salt trucks to make sure that semis don't jackknife on the Santa Ana. Should have seen my shoes.
But Kennedy, at least there was a senator was inconvenienced and kept out of Washington for several hours, so it wasn't a total loss.
No, that's absolutely true. That was, thoughts and prayers to Vice President Kane. Well, on to Vice President Kamala Harris, once again showing that she has the political instincts of a doorknob, with thousands of Americans stuck and freezing on that Virginia highway and hundreds more stuck on a single Amtrak train for 40 hours. They couldn't pee because the bathrooms were all backed up. They had no food for 24 of those hours. The VP used the crisis to score a goal on herself. known as an own goal in soccer. She tweeted, "Because of the bipartisan infrastructure law, America is moving again." That's what infrastructure is all about, getting people moving. So does the vice president have no idea what's going on in the country, or does she just not care, Kelly Hyman?
I do believe she cares, and I think it's great as a female that we have the first female vice president in the White House, and I hope someday that we have the first female president of the United States of America. But we have to think about what the infrastructure bill means for itself and how a majority of Americans support the infrastructure bill. It's going to help us in the future with roads. I don't know, Kenny, I've traveled on the freeways going from Colorado to Florida, and our roads are in bad shape. Our bridges are in bad shape, and so the infrastructure is going to help with that and help with the truck drivers driving our food and supplies across country on those freeways.
Then why did the president appoint a man to be Secretary of Transportation? It's not helping with anything, Carol.
Well, look, I would side with giving the VP a pass on this kind of thing. I'm sure it was a planned tweet or something. If it weren't for a long-running pattern of tone deafness from this administration, they seem completely unaware of what's happening outside their doors. And I don't think Kamala Harris's incompetence is because she's a woman at all. I think, she just happens to be an incompetent woman. But whether Jen Psaki is calling supply chain problems the tragedy of the treadmill, or Ron Klain is arguing that inflation is good, or the president is constantly on vacation, they just seem so out of touch, and that's why this kind of tweet was so mockable.
Yeah, and it still is very funny to me, Dave, that people went out of their way to blame Glenn Youngkin. They're like, "Welcome to the Youngkin era." That's like blaming Joe Biden for January 6th. Like, "Oh, this is what you're getting, America. You voted for the old guy. They're storming the Capitol. They're going to burn everything down because he's senile."
It actually makes quite a bit more sense to blame Joe Biden for January 6th. Both of them don't make sense, but there's more of a case to be made. Look, it's just obviously this was just like a faux pas and an error, but it's just so funny that she said keep America moving while bragging about the infrastructure bill. It's just, look, number one, I'd say it's really got to start to scare Democrats that she is just so bad at this, and that she is your next presidential hopeful. And the party's not going to be able to go against her because, as was just said on this panel, she's the first woman and the woman of color. And so who could argue against that, right? She's qualified by her gender and race. And Joe Biden isn't really in the best shape. Does anyone really think he's going to finish this term and have another 4 years in him? So this is what you've got, and this is what you've got to go for. And I'm sorry, but that should really scare Democrats. How can anyone really envision Kamala Harris, who was just absolutely collapsed as a presidential candidate in 2020? Can anyone really envision her in 2024 taking on an even just somewhat remotely liked Republican? I don't know. I just don't see it happening. This is why they should be so scared of Trump coming back, because Trump beats Kamala Harris. DeSantis beats Kamala Harris. She's not winning against one of those guys.
No, and I don't like to engage in this transphobic language that is so female-centric. I think it's quite rude, Kelly.
Well, listen, I think it's great as a woman to have a VP as a woman, but I disagree with the other panelists. I do believe that Biden's going to run, and I do believe no matter who he runs against, he's going to win. So
he's not going to. Okay, first of all, he's not going to run. He's not going to run. It's not aging well.
Okay.
All right. He's not going to run.
Kennedy, do you want to bet on that one?
You want to bet $10,000? You want to bet $10,000?
Yeah, I'll bet you.
All right. I'll
bet you,
that bet. I will take that bet. He will not run, and he will not win.
Okay, the bet was whether he's going to run or not. I bet he's going to run.
You said he's going to run. He's going to win.
I didn't say that.
Yeah,
now you're changing the deal. No, I didn't.
I'm not changing the deal.
He was going to run.
That was the deal. You said run and win.
All right.
So you don't even believe in him.
He's going to run and win. Absolutely.
You and your transphobic pro-boobies.
I bet he's going to run. And he's going to win.
No, I'm going to be $10,000 with you,
Kennedy.
Yeah, he's not going to run. He's not going to win. I can't wait for my money. All right, if we're still here, but if we follow the science, we're all going to die. Carol, Kelly, Dave, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kennedy. Happy New Year.